Good morning. I'm glad you made it back. We are in week 7 of Queen of the Castle. It's okay to say no, managing our time as homemakers. As I reread through this week's lesson, it's one of those that is very profound for so many of us. Whether we are full-time homemakers or we have to go outside and work, and are still homemakers, but maybe not full time. Regardless, it is so easy for our schedules to just get crazy. So there were a couple of tips she put in here. One was cut people off after 3 minutes. And honestly, I'm not comfortable doing that. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, she's not meaning it to be rude. Of course she's not. So it's finding a gentle way of saying, I'm very excited for you. Maybe we can continue this conversation later. I need to, head out, or I just, people understand that we have things to do too. It is important though that you pay attention. Are they telling you something that they need to share something? And do you have the time to be there for them? And so just kind of keep those things in mind. And that's a checks and balances, and we'll talk a little about that shortly. Another thing she says is accept the fact that you can't do everything. That's a hard one. We want to do everything. I remember a time when my husband, he worked a full-time job, would say, "I'll do the shopping for you. If you get the grocery list together, I'll do the shopping for you." And I was so offended, and I thought, why am I so offended by him doing the shopping? And I was like, that's my job. And so of course that's how I reacted at the time. And later I realized, as we talked about it more, he knows that I do not enjoy going into the big stores. I don't like bringing children with me, that it is very stressful, or it can be very stressful. And so he was offering that as a love option for me. And I thought that was wonderful once I got that into perspective. But you have to take a step back and stop realizing that people are just trying to offend you. So that was hard for me. But we talked about 2 weeks ago celebrating creativity in small snatches, and I mentioned a dump list there. And that's what I used to schedule my week. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still get caught up in people asking me, will you do this or will you do that? And I have to really stop and think about what my priorities are. And I love doing so many different things, and I don't want to let anybody down. But the reality is not everything can be important. Although I can do many things, when I have too much on my list, things aren't done as well as they could be. And if they're not being done as well as they could be, the glory is not going to God at all. In fact, it makes it look like I'm a big flake, and what kind of Christian am I that I'm a big flake? So she mentions, 4 boxes, putting things in these 4 different boxes. One called urgent and important, one urgent and not important. The third one is not urgent and important. And the fourth one, not urgent and not important. So those are those things that you have to decide what is important. To me, it's important to spend 1 day a week deep cleaning the house and getting laundry done. That's important to me because I know how it blesses my husband. I know how it blesses my daughter. I also realize at the end of the day, the amount of stress that is relieved, that I'm not so worried if someone were to pop by unannounced. It doesn't bother me as much anymore. Whereas before it was, I can't believe they didn't call. Now it's not that big of a deal. My house is pretty much in order the rest of the week. One of the quotes that they shared was from Tyranny of the Urgent. And if you're not familiar with that book, it is fantastic. It's Charles E. Hummel, and he says, if you find you cannot make room in your schedule for the task, you can decline the request without guilt. After the event, you may ask, how did it go? invariably you'll hear, fine, we got someone else to do it, and they did a great job. Over many years, I have never heard the answer, we are sorry that because you couldn't come, we had to cancel our plans. I have come to realize that I am the indispensable person only until the moment I say no. So I thought that was fantastic that he talks about that. She also mentions in this book this week Martha. You know, Martha and Mary, and this is in Luke, where Jesus comes to their house and Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus and she is listening to all that he has to say, and Martha is saying, Jesus, will you scold her? Tell her to get up. We have things to do. We've got people coming. We've got to prepare the meal. We've got to do this and we've got to do that. And Jesus says, she's the one that's doing the right thing. At the end of the day, guys, there's so much. I might share this book in 2 weeks, actually, because we're going to talk a little bit more about busyness. But this was a book I read as a child. I got it probably from one of those library things. And it's about a little girl who is so busy with her tasks that her friend, which happens to be a unicorn, which I loved unicorns when I was growing up. I still do. I think they're beautiful. But anyway, it's a really lovely book, and it talks about how she's just so busy that she doesn't have time for her friends. So that's a really neat one. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do it. At the end, it says, there is a time for work and a time for play. Share time with your friends before they go away. So that's the moral of that story, isn't it? Sweet. So anyway, it's a great book, a great reader book for younger children. In Psalm 127, 1 through 2, this one was really crazy to me when you really put this into perspective. You get so busy that sometimes you are sleep deprived, right? And it's not because the baby's up all night. It's because you weren't able to get things done because the kids were awake and busy and needed you. And so you are now sacrificing your sleep when they're sleeping in order to get things done. Or you're getting up extra early because you figure if I get up extra early, I can get all those tasks done. So here's what this says. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. I had no idea that sleep was a blessing. He loves us so much, he wants us to get that sleep. So make sure that you're finding the right balance. And honestly, I don't know if you're at this place right now, but I've been at this place so many times where Matthew 11:28 through 30 is so important. When you are so exhausted, you're exhausted with your ministry, you're exhausted as a mom, you're exhausted as a wife, you're exhausted as a homemaker, you're exhausted as a friend. It's because we are not building our house with the Lord. He's not watching over the city. We're not allowing him to. And so we become exhausted. So in Matthew 11 it says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So don't get caught up in the busyness of life. Time is short. Find out what's important and do your best to stick to that, and you will have maybe a much easier life, maybe not, but it will definitely be more enjoyable. Blessings to you. Enjoy this week's message, and I will see you next Sunday.